Hello, my name is Chris Perren. I'm a composer and a producer and a video artist. I live with my wife and a couple of kids on Yagara land in Brisbane's south side. My musical interests are pretty eclectic, and so the way that I like to make music is also pretty broad. The approaches that I like to take, so whether it's notated music or using computers or just improvising and playing on instruments, I like to explore very different ways of doing it. And that sort of goes beyond music as well, so I also like to incorporate a lot of video and visual stuff in what I do. So by day, I'm really lucky to have a pretty cool job. I teach music technology at the UQ School of Music. And part of my job there over the years has been to direct an iPad ensemble, which has been generally a group of 15 to 20 students using iPads and other electronic devices to make music in a sort of collaborative and performative way. So when I first started doing that, I didn't even have an iPad. And so very quickly I had to get myself an iPad and learn a whole bunch of stuff about how music can be made on an iPad, which I must say there was a part of me that was quite skeptical about the possibilities. However, when I got into it, I was really blown away by what is possible and how many pro level apps are being made which you can use to create music. So one of the ways that the iPad has sort of infiltrated my own musical process is as a kind of playground for generating sounds and ideas. There are a lot of apps that use sort of interesting performative and gestural controls to manipulate sounds. Some of the ones that I really love are Patterning, which is an amazing drum machine app. It's really it's a total monster. There are just so many controls. There's an app called Thumb Jam, which is really popular with my students in the ensemble. And it's really cool because of its simplicity. So it provides just a two-dimensional field with usually pitch left to right, and then some other parameter, a customizable parameter, which could be volume or filter cutoff or something like that, going top to bottom. I love this app called Sunriser, which is a cool synthesizer app. You probably have to have a little bit of grounding in subtractive synthesis, or the way vintage synthesizers kind of work to get a lot out of it. But it is pretty powerful, and the sounds it makes are really cool. And another one that I dig is this one called Fugue Machine, which I would explain, but I just don't think it's worth the time. If you're interested in layered and complex musical textures, then Fugue Machine is a fun way to make them. Another way that it has become part of my process is as a place to arrange and record music. Generally, I'm using tools like Ableton Live to arrange my music. But there is this app called Core Gadget, which I've been using more and more lately as an actual DAW, a digital audio workstation, to create multi-track pieces. I generally will use that to get 70% of the way there on a track, an electronic piece of music, and then I will import the materials into Ableton Live to finish it off. And the other really cool app, which is the one that I'm going to go into a bit more in this video, is GarageBand. GarageBand is free with the iPad and extremely powerful as a DAW, digital audio workstation, where you can record, sequence, arrange, and layer all sorts of sounds to make a full piece of music. It is kind of designed to be very user-friendly, so that you don't need a lot of music production or music theory knowledge to make a piece of music. And the byproduct of that fact is that it is a little limiting, so it doesn't give you a lot of controls because it sort of doesn't want to confuse you, I think. So it can be a little bit limiting in that way. But it does really have a flow to it. It's extremely well designed and it sounds really good. And so, yeah, GarageBand I think is an kind of underrated tool for making music. So, what I thought I might do now is actually try and make a piece of music from scratch on GarageBand. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm just going to like make something. I'll give myself about 2 hours to do it. And as I go, I'll try and give a few little hints and tips on GarageBand, and hopefully also give you a bit of an insight into the kinds of things I'm thinking about when I am making music, whether it's in GarageBand or anywhere else. So GarageBand starts you out here in this screen, and you just tap the plus button to start a new track, and it actually drops you in looking at the instruments. So the first thing you do is you select an instrument, and then you are in the sort of interface for that instrument. So it doesn't put you into the sequencer, into like the timeline like other software might, which I think is interesting because it's kind of inviting you to like just have a play around with an instrument before you start thinking about how your song is going to go. When you're in GarageBand, you set the key for the entire project, basically. So you go up here to this little cog image, and you can select your tempo, your time signature, and your key. The tempo can be set by tapping. So like if you have a tempo in mind, you can just tap here with your finger 4 times, and it will set the tempo based on the speed of your tapping. So I'm thinking like something kind of slow. So let's pop that in at 81. I'm just going to make it 80. I really like this pad. So I'm going to record it. So to record something, you hit this record button up the top and it'll give you a metronome to play against, and it'll give you a bar in. I don't know. There's a thing. Now, a little tip with recording in GarageBand is it's a good idea to go to these instrument settings, your track settings, and where it says recording, you can actually turn on this thing called merge recordings, which means that rather than having to do everything in one take, you can actually layer multiple takes and it will not overwrite the material that's already there, but just add the new material in each pass. So once you've recorded something, you can then have a look at it in the timeline view, and you can also open it up to edit the notes or use the pencil to add notes like this. Now, if your playing is kind of sloppy like mine, the other thing that is hidden away in this track settings is quantization. You can turn on quantization to a straight rhythm, quarter note, eighth note, 16th note, etc. So the way you use that is like if you are actually playing semiquavers, then you need to set it to 16th. But if like me, it's like broad rhythms, only maybe crotchets and minims and stuff, then you can set it to quarter note. And it will lock it to the grid. All right, let's add some more layers. We can do that by pressing the plus button, and then it drops us back at the instrument menu. One cool thing about GarageBand is that it does kind of play nice with other apps that you might have. So if you go to this external section, you can either see what other apps have audio unit extensions. Audio unit extensions will actually integrate directly into GarageBand. And then also you can use them as inter-app audio, which is not quite as integrated. Basically means it will create a track that you can record into from another app. So for example, if I wanted to use patterning to make my drums, I could hit patterning. It opens the patterning app for me, and I just need to make sure that I'm on the same tempo, and I can use the patterning interface and the sounds to record into GarageBand. So this track is now actually just an audio track with the drums that I've recorded from patterning. So it's not quite in time, so we can like use the editing tools to try and edit it into time. When you do split, it gives you a little pair of scissors, which you then have to drag down with your finger. One really cool feature of GarageBand is this sampler. So it will allow you to record your own custom sound into the microphone and then turn that into a keyboard instrument. So we can go start. And I'm going to make a whistle instrument. So we just trim it off. So because I'm using triplets in this track, I'm quantizing it to triplet, unlike the other track. Gonna move some notes around. You can copy and paste. Okay, so now I've got like a solid 8-bar loop. And at this point, I'm thinking about how I'm going to expand on this and make it longer. There's a little plus button at the top that allows you to sort of add a next section. So you bring that up, it brings up your song sections, and you can say add to add a new section, which you then start filling with music. The other option that you have is to select one of the song sections and hit duplicate, which is cool too, because then it just fills it with the same material, and you can alter that material to make a variation, which I think is a quicker way of working, really. So I like to use that duplicate button. It's good to know as well in this song sections, you can set it to all sections and then you get to sort of see what's going on, like a bird's eye view of everything, which is important because otherwise you lose a sense of the transitions between the sections. So this piece has got 3 sections now, which I've created from just duplicating that original section and then sort of building it up. I also decided to shorten the section to 7 bars. For each one, because I get a bit bored with the like constant 4/4 predictability. So it's just sort of cuts 1 bar off the end so that it switches back to the first chord a little quicker. Now I'm going to move on to the next section. So I'm going to add something different basically. One of the things that I like to think about when I'm composing is how can I grow something new from the ideas that are already there? And so in approaching this next section, rather than just trying to write a completely new melody, what I'm going to try and do is try and allow the things that are already here to inspire a new idea. So I'm thinking like maybe I've used these triplets, maybe triplets are going to be something that I use, and maybe, you know, the sounds that are here, I can see what else is they're capable of and try and use that. Yeah, we'll see how we go. So now I've got this next section, which is actually only 5 bars long, and it's kind of built from the idea of triplets, which emerged naturally in the previous section, and now I'm sort of running with that. I'm also starting to look at the volumes of each track and starting to mix at this point. So when you are normally looking at the screen, it looks like this just with the icons, but you can pull it across and change the volumes of each track using these little sliders. So at this point, I'm kind of listening back to it, thinking about how to continue this arrangement. I'm going to the all sections and listening through for how the sections connect. Like, for example, when I do this, I'm noticing that when I move from the C section to the D section, which is sort of the biggest change, it's not like preempted very well. It just sort of abruptly changes. So I'll be going in there and trying to just refine those transitions between things, fix up the mix, that sort of thing. All right, so it's been about 2 hours that I've been working on this. I did have a little break because the battery died I'll be honest. But this is kind of where we're at. So we've got like a bunch of sections now. Some of the instruments that I had before, I've actually duplicated so that they can do different things in different sections. I duplicated this. So you'll remember this sound, which was actually made from me whistling into the microphone and then got turned into a sampler instrument. So I ended up duplicating that 3 times. So sometimes it's 2 duplicates left and right, which is slightly detuned, gives it a nice stereo width. And then there's another one which is just like a plane in the middle so that it sits back in the mix a little bit in a different section. We ended up with 3 different drum kits. So they have these 2, one that sort of works the triplets and the other that does the straight rhythms, but they're the same drum kit. And then I put a 3rd drum kit in, which is sort of like reverberant in the background, and it's just there for me to do little fills as the section kind of builds up. And of course, there are still those drums here from the patterning drum machine, which I use the external input for. I ended up using GarageBand's grand piano for that sort of middle section. A hot tip with the grand piano is a good idea to keep your velocity really low because it's going to make the MIDI piano sound a lot less MIDI. This is true for like most MIDI piano situations. Keep the velocities low and it sounds less bad. I ended up using the GarageBand automation feature to do sort of a bit of rudimentary mixing here to control the volumes of things. So you can enter the automation and then you can use the pencil tool to add lines and then click done and then you can go back to where you were. I ended up putting this bass sound in just sort of through the louder sections to anchor everything. Sort of like synth bass, very simple. So I kind of hope that this shows just how much we have at our fingertips for making music that is like, you know, almost professional tools that you can do so much with without having to go and buy a lot of gear or accessories or cables or anything. So there you go. And this is how it turned out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that what I've done has been interesting or useful to you. I'll see you later.